All right, Nick Ofak, welcome to the podcast. Appreciate you coming on, man.
I'm glad we can schedule
We've been bouncing back and forth a little bit, but
Yeah,
finally glad to get it on the books here. But would love to start with you about the hot cold therapies that you have going on at your house. When did those start, and how did those just come about?
great way to start. 2020, and I know how that has affected many people, but my health and wellness, I was an athlete, always health conscious, but really started making some shifts. And 2020 was all about trying new things, challenging myself. I did some big hikes, but I, started running a lot more. I think 2019 is when my running journey officially started, but started really pushing a lot more 2020. And the ice bath was a big reason for it, just to challenge yourself. And I realized, it's mindset. It's all about mindset. And, even with running, I say that to people, it's 99% mindset. And I think everyone is capable of doing it. But if you tell yourself you can't, you're not going to. And I tell my kids now to this day, don't say you can't. If you don't want to, that's okay. But we don't say can't, because you can do anything you want, but you can choose obviously not to. So it's been a consistent thing for now over 3 years. If I don't get into an ice bath, I take a cold shower every day.
Man, good for you. I like the cold. I like the ice baths. The cold showers, though, I have a tough
It,
time giving up my warm showers.
no, it is a challenge, and I'll start hot, but I'll end
Mm,
cold,
okay.
and that's just, you get out of that shower and you are rejuvenated.
Yeah, that's for sure. Then when did you start like bringing other people into it? You have friends come over, neighbors and stuff like that. Was that right from the get-go, or did that slowly kind of pick up?
Now that evolved into just, trying to create a community, and I plan on doing much more of that this year with you have some ideas. In fact, you're in my idea with your health and wellness. I just want to really push health and wellness and challenge. My three C's are community, connection, and challenges. And a lot of these trips that I take, or these groups that I get together, there's something special when you're with a community of like-minded individuals. Obviously you're connecting, but as you're connecting, you're doing challenging things. And this has become that. We get in together the first couple of years, and as I guess you alluded to, I keep my pool open all winter. So that's how I'm able to have a winter, ice gathering. So we all get in together, and it makes that experience that much easier when you're doing it with other people. It's much harder doing it by yourself, because again, it's a mental game and you start talking yourself out of it. When you're in with people, you're, before you know it, 5 minutes go by and you're in 35-degree water. But no, that has just been kind of like a passion project, fun, just to try to introduce people to new things. And then I incorporated a sauna as well. So now we do a hot and cold, and clients come, business friends, just like-minded individuals that want to challenge themselves. It's a lot of fun.
And how long has just like that idea of suffering with community been just something you've been focusing on? Has that been since like 2019, 2020 as well, or
No,
further?
probably last couple of
Mhm.
years, but just going on some of these entrepreneur trips that I do, there's just different events. And again, you're being challenged at these events. You don't know anybody. And I just think I think that's where I got it. Probably it was about 2.5 years ago, the kind of the idea of creating a community, and just trying some challenging things.
And you've also done ultras.
I did one.
One, okay.
I might be one and done.
Okay. Hey, one's good. How was that? Was that experience like for you? And
It
what,
was a
30,
great
30 some
experience.
miles?
It was ended up being about 34. The big challenge for me was, we took a wrong turn in the run. We were towards the back of the pack anyway, but the signage wasn't great. So, it says the split, the first one, the second one, and there was some confusion. Anyway, long story short, we ended up running 3 more miles than we were supposed to, and we were in the middle of the woods. I had no idea where we were, and I was convinced we weren't going the right way. I'm glad I was with somebody, and he's a younger gentleman, and we run together, and he was pushing me on this one. He's like, "Come on, we got this, keep going," because I was done. I wanted to be done, especially when 50K is 31 miles, and I'm
Mhm.
like, we should be at the finish line. Why aren't we? But it was a cool experience.
Why at 50 did you decide to do something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think at 48 is really when I started to, I'm 51 now, started to start pushing myself. But yeah, the 50K, it's just after doing, a half, a full, I just wanted to keep going and see what that experience is like. I'm considering 100K, maybe at a 50 mile. I don't know if I 100% committed yet, but it's just the challenge of it, man. Why not? Why not? Because we're capable of so much more, and that goes back to the mindset thing. And I know you know a lot about that.
Yeah, I love physical challenges myself, and I'm not sure if you've seen some of the stuff that I do, but
Yeah,
it's been probably about 5 years now that I've had like a goal of doing one like super physically hard, challenging thing a year at
yeah.
least. And it started with the David Goggins 4x4x48 challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Did that for like 2 years, and then did 50 miles. Did a 50 mile. It wasn't like a ultra marathon race or anything, but just
Yeah.
50 miles. The goal was 100,000 steps in a day, and so
Okay.
like that, and it ended up being like 48 miles, 49 miles, and
How
so
was that?
that was probably the most physically challenging thing I've ever done.
Yeah,
And
I can imagine.
it was brutal. It was nice because I was when I was down in South America, and I was just like going around Buenos Aires. It was like my last weekend in Buenos Aires, so I was like, I want to do something that's memorable, and
Awesome.
and so it was a great way to end it, other than just being physically and mentally and emotionally drained afterwards. But
Yep.
but it was good. And then last year did a half Ironman. This year I'm training for a full Ironman.
I see you're training for full. That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
and I think, to your point, it's the easiest way to prove to yourself that you are more capable than you think you are.
Yeah.
And then you're able to carry that same mindset into every other aspect of life. And whatever that challenging thing is for you, it can be just losing some
Yeah.
weight, or it can be doing a full Ironman. But by doing something physically challenging, you're able to tangibly see a change, or you accomplishing
Yeah.
something. And that just trickles out into every other aspect of life.
Yep. Absolutely. And back to doing that with other like-minded individuals that want to challenge themselves, the connection that's created through those tasks, through those challenging events, it's like lifelong friendships and connections. I mean, the relationships have just grown tremendously at all these events. You just meet some incredible people.
Yeah, absolutely. It's through suffering is what like really brings people together. Like,
Yeah.
you don't build
Yeah.
deep relationships on the beach per se,
Yeah.
metaphorical beach. You do it in the trenches. Like, people come
Yeah.
back from war, like they're with their brothers. Like,
Yeah.
when you go through
Exactly
some
right.
shit, you're combined, or you're tied together forever.
Yep.
And then what about 2020 was it for you that kind of made this switch to make these changes and start doing physically hard challenges, focusing more on your health, stuff like that?
Well, like I mentioned, I mean, I was always an athlete, and I just saw a lot of up and down with my health and my physical health, and it was a mental health too. I mean, being an entrepreneur, as you know, it's challenging, and I'm going on 10 years since I left the corporate world, and I know I need challenges. That's just who I am, and that's a big piece of it, is the desire to challenge myself in every area of life, really. But 2020, I mean, it just came back down to, I think, a mindset shift, and just to see how crazy the world got, and it's just like, let's go, let's kick it up a notch, kick it in gear, and get real about my health, make it my number one priority, and that has slowly got to that point. But we talked about it pre-recording, that the consistency of things, it's a challenge. It's a challenge with everyone, and I'm still not, really, the word is disciplined, as much as I know I will be. I'm not going to say I'm not going to be there. I'm still a work in progress. It just took me long enough to get there.
With just some of these changes, has there been anything specific for you that has helped with consistency and become more disciplined over time? Has it been certain, I don't know, putting a date on a calendar of an event or something like that has led to more consistency?
Yeah, I mean, the first question you asked was the ice bath. That played a big part, just because of how challenging it is, and basically to tell your brain or your mind, this is what you're going to do today, because it was that internal battle. Am I going to do this again today? Am I going to get cold immersion or cold exposure? And I got very consistent, and that challenge of it absolutely helped. to your calendar comment, another one, putting something on the calendar that I have, right in front of me, not just digitally, but on my wall. And, I look at it every day, or, I try to, and, I see something on that calendar that is driving me, whatever it is. It's a family vacation, just a challenging event. I'm looking forward to it, and it energizes me to if there's a training goal, tied to it, or, what have you.
And what do your kids think of crazy dad doing cold immersion and running ultras and all that stuff?
And my wife too. I think they're over it, but it did take a couple years. And she called it, my wife called it, my midlife crisis. This is how I'm handling it. And I say it's my midlife awakening. I don't look at it as a crisis, at all. And like you, in the space that you trying to help people, I mean, that's where I'm heading to want to help, I think, and coach, to just try to open people's mind to what works and not the conventional route, try new things. I just want to help, and I've just learned a lot in the last couple of years about my health and how easily it is obtainable if you put a little bit of time, effort, focus, consistency.
How often do you work out currently and all that type of stuff?
I try to workout in every day, whether it's a walk, run, pull-ups, sit-ups, stretching in the morning. I'm doing something. There is not a set plan other than I want to get in motion. I want to get in motion some way, somehow. And I try to mix it up. I don't want to do the same thing and have a scheduled workout, because I need that variety. And being outdoors. And I know and I can agree with this. I mean, just to being outdoors, man, like that's where I want to, be active and put things in motion.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why I signed up for doing like the Ironman and stuff like that. Just like forces me to be outdoors for an extended period of time. And if you would ask me 3 years ago or however long ago that like I'd be training for anything endurance, let alone an Ironman, I've told you you're crazy, because I hated endurance. And it's just funny how things change when, to your point of like putting them in the right perspective when in anything health, and also understanding how to do it in a way that isn't awful.
Yeah.
All this health stuff can be relatively easy if you figure out, one, just what you enjoy doing. You have to be super self-aware of what type of movements that you like. What do you actually enjoy? If you enjoy it, that's ultimately going to lead you to keep coming back, and back to the point of consistency.
Yeah.
That is the ultimate key to this whole
Yep.
game. And then same thing with food. You can make pretty much anything healthy nowadays. And so figuring out what it is that you like, and then taking the time to figure out how to make that in a more healthy manner than buying it from a restaurant or whatever. And so making small changes over time can lead to significant changes over a longer period of time. And once you get on that kind of virtuous cycle of feeling good, looking good, and so you want to keep feeling good, and so you keep doing more, and then it becomes a lifestyle, and that's what you wanted to be.
Lifestyle is what we're after, for sure. And we're habitual creatures, as you know. In your teachings and your help, do you talk about like hidden cues that take people back to their routines, their bad habits? You know what I mean? Like, for me, I know I need to be outdoors. Like, I've learned that, and that helps with that mindset shift. So when I'm stuck in my office doing paperwork, that's where I start getting down a little bit.
Yeah. It all comes back to self-awareness, to that point of just like, what in your life leads you to making a decision? All decisions are basically made based off our subconscious thoughts, and our subconscious thoughts are based off of different cues that happen or things that we're doing. And so trying to understand those and bring those subconscious beliefs, thoughts about ourselves and what that leads to into the conscious mind. And then once it's there is when you can actually start making real change. And it's hard at first, but once you make it a habit or make it a routine, it just becomes who you are. And again, back to identity, back to lifestyle. Once it's into that manner of just, it is who I am and what I do, and it's just not even a question anymore.
Love it.
Then let's talk about your business for a sec. How'd you get into where you are? You said you left the corporate world 10 years ago. Again, something that we have
Yeah.
in common. Left it myself 2 years ago, coming up on 2 years now.
Okay.
So what was that jump like for you? You were in a much different manner of life or time
Mm.
of life than I
Yeah.
than I was. At my
Yeah.
point, it was just like me, single. I didn't have
Yeah.
anything else. And so a while was obviously still a big deal. Wasn't that big of a deal. It was just like
Sure.
I sink or float on my own. But you have other people in your life to think about. So what was that process like?
Yeah, it was a challenging one for sure. I mean, I was in the corporate world for 18 years and I had a very, very nice, healthy salary, but I knew I needed more. And I didn't really know what that was. It wasn't really about the money per se. I mean, I knew what I'm capable of, and I knew I could more than likely would do better, but I just knew I needed, again, I think it goes back to challenges, something new. It seemed the corporate world just became a little monotonous, even though I loved what I did. I love what I do. And I still was challenged there because it was a challenging role, but I knew I needed more. So it was something I was thinking about for a while. And I came from a family of business owners. Maybe that was had something to do with it because as a child, I worked in the family business. But I had a friend in the business. He worked out of New York City and I worked out of Philadelphia market, and we were at the same company, and he went out on his own, and he's a little younger than I. And we were friends, and we were talking about, why he did this, the challenges he's facing. And I said, I've been thinking about it more and more. And I think I'm going to do it here very soon. And he basically said, before you do anything, let's have dinner. So I think the cold feet that I was having him as a partner, because I knew what I was getting involved with him, and I got lucky because he is that guy. He is a great partner, a great person. We challenge each other. We learn a lot from each other. We complement each other. So it was a great opportunity. And he basically said, join me. Basically build your Philadelphia market, and I'll build my central North Jersey market. And to have someone already have a business that was 2 years in place made it a lot easier for me to transition, but it still was very, very challenging. I mean, it wasn't took me 3 years to even get near what I was making, as an employee. It doesn't happen that fast. So having a support system at home, I would have to thank my wife, because she always was by my side and said, I have faith in you. I believe in you. And if that's what you want to do, there was never any, negative energy from her relative to making that move. She knew I wanted to do it, and she said, go for it.
What did you do in the corporate world, and was it the same thing you're doing now?
Same.
It's still
Same.
contracting.
It's construction management. It's general contracting. My partner and I worked for some of the largest firms in the nation and in the world. So we came from big companies. So we knew the processes and procedures very well. It was just the entrepreneur end, to try to build your business, branding, marketing, all that stuff. And yeah, took it on and figured it out. And I'm going to be 10 years this year, and he's, I believe, around 12 years since we left our old employer.
That's incredible. Congrats, man.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
How'd you go about figuring out all that stuff? Branding, marketing, developing relationships, hiring teams, a lot to put on the plate.
Yeah,
Again, kind of,
tremendous amount.
we're in similar roles, but like my business is just like kind of online. And so it's
Yeah.
relatively simple, where you're dealing in real life with people, with real buildings and stuff like that. So how'd you just think about taking that initial step from 0 to 1?
Yeah, I think the confidence in what we have done and can do helped a lot. We know the business well. We have relationships. And again, I think, starting with a company that you have been doing similar work, same work, helps tremendously. I mean, to start something fresh, something new, that's got to be, a lot more challenging. But then all the other pieces to it, the marketing, the sales, it's just trial and error, and see what you're good at, see what you want to do, see what you like. And if you have to outsource it, do it in-house if you can. And, I've always been pretty good with developing connections and relationships. I took a liking to marketing. I enjoy marketing, the social media piece, and I've been building my brand, my personal brand, for a long time, and I'm very intentional. And I would have a lot of friends and tease me about how much I would post or this and that, but it's all pretty strategic and intentional to some level. Obviously, I'll have fun with it too, but I've been building that brand because I know how important your personal brand and reputation is if you're trying to build a business, and people want to know who they're doing business with. And I'm very transparent, as my partner is, and we like to put ourselves out there. And it's been a process, though. Put yourself out there. You know how challenging that can be. Doing the podcast here now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something. Very small few will even try. And it's, again, back to what we talked about earlier. To stay consistent with it is a challenge.
When it came to building a brand, how
Mm-hmm.
or what do you think about like putting out content for just like personal wise versus value for a business per se, and just like the initial kind of first steps of figuring out what it meant
Yeah.
to be a brand?
Yeah, it's authenticity. I think more than anything is just putting yourself out there. And again, it comes with challenges because it's new to me. I mean, I still sometimes on video I struggle a little bit, but again, you have to think back to, okay, just be yourself, just be who you are, and don't worry about anything else, right? I mean, you are who you are. Be authentic, stay transparent, and I just want people to know who I am and what I'm about. Is really what it was all for me. Is just trying not to be afraid to put myself out there and just to be who I am.
Was there a lot of fear there at first?
Yes, there was. I think one of the things that I've talked to, and I just had this conversation with another entrepreneur buddy, and this is something that he didn't have. I think I kind of feared success to some level because I knew what will come with success will me changing myself and doing things that I may not be comfortable doing. And that was an inner struggle, which was a very weird one for me. And I think that's held me back a lot in the earlier years. I could have been doing more. I could have been further along than where I'm at because I had, I don't know if it was so much imposter syndrome, maybe a little bit, but it was more just like, okay, if I do become successful, then I got to be all in, even though I realized I got to be all in to really be successful because it's not easy. I thought I'd be able to get work. I went to Temple University and my alma mater, and that's my biggest client today, which is awesome. But when I first started, I thought I can get, because of relationships I had there, I've done large projects there with my previous employers. I thought I can to get them as a client, in a month. It took almost a year just to get an opportunity. It's just a process. And some of those things you don't know. It's the long game, right? You just have to keep playing it. And I learned patience. I've been struggling with patience for a long time, but I think being an entrepreneur, it's being forced upon me, and I'm getting better at it.
Yeah, patience is a virtue in all aspects of life, but especially in entrepreneurship, because being an entrepreneur, like you take the risk of, or you're saying to yourself, like, I'm putting it all on myself to make things happen, and I
Yeah.
believe in myself to make things happen. And so when inevitably it doesn't happen is a bit of a crisis mode of just saying, oh man, am I who I think I am? Like, am I able to accomplish what I think I can accomplish? And there's like this clash of instant gratification that we all have. And again, especially as entrepreneurs, we want to see that dollar in the bank account go up. We want to see new
immediate
relationships
results.
formed.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And so there really is just internal battle that we have to just take a deep breath and say, as long as I focus on the actions that will lead to success in the long run, that success will be there. May not be there tomorrow, may not be there in a week, but a year from now, it'll be there, or however long it takes, but it takes time. And so any specific, I don't know, practices or anything in general that helped you learn a bit of patience of just like being able to be okay with what is currently going on in the business?
Back to original question: cold exposure, ice baths, and running. I mean, I now need them. It's something that I desire because, and I've used this, I think, on a podcast or two on my own, where one place I am in life that I don't love how I feel or who I am is when I'm on the road. I get a tad of road rage here and there from from drivers that I
Jerry.
can't do anything about. So I don't know why I allow it to get me upset, but I've gotten a lot better at it, and it has a lot to do with the ice exposure. And that's what I believe, because you're stressing your body intentionally, and those stressors help with other stress. You know what I mean? It just makes other stress in life, other triggers in life, easier to deal with. And absolutely, and running too.
Yeah, 100%. Chosen suffering allows you to better withstand unchosen suffering, and helps you realize that it's like, hey, this feeling that I feel right now, like, yes, it's there, but it'll go away. Like, just give some. There's that patience. Give some take some time, and it'll go away. And
Yeah.
you'll be able to just kind of laugh at yourself for just whatever it is that you're angry about, sad about, whatever it is, and makes you more resilient in the long run.
Yeah, ma'am.
With the first couple stages of entrepreneurship, what was some of those first like big wins that like, okay, I can do this, like things are really starting to come to fruition for me here, that made you feel like, yep, this is what I should be doing?
Yeah, I went into it not going back. I always knew that I could get another job and get a nice salary. But there were definitely times when I would question, is this what I want? It's so much easier just to get that paycheck. But just keep realizing who I am and the challenges that I need. And this, I did this for a reason. And it was to challenge myself. It was to grow. I mean, being an entrepreneur, you have the ability to meet incredible people. You have the ability to be by yourself more than most. And that time with yourself, you get to learn a lot about yourself. You're talking to yourself a lot more, because you're not dealing with, obviously we're dealing with a lot, obviously, but it's just that solitude. It's the hardest thing I've ever tried to do. But I'm mumbling a little bit, but to back to your original question, I think it was year 3 when I was making what I was making in the corporate world. That was a comfort. That was like, okay, I worked hard, but now I built up to a certain point, and I think I can keep going, and double, triple, what have you. But it goes back to that patience and long game, because it did, and then it would do this, and it would do this, and then 2020 hit, and it's a constant challenge, my man.
Yeah. What was 2020 like for you guys? Did it affect a lot, little?
Yeah.
And then how did you think about either pivoting if you needed to pivot to
Yeah.
continue to be successful, or just hunker down and weather the storm? What was your guys' kind of strategy?
Yeah, it was scary, because 2 months we were shut down. Didn't know. Had no idea. I mean, especially Temple University as a state school, Philadelphia was very, very hard with handling COVID, and very strict. So yes, it was scary. Now we have a custom home. That's the commercial end, which is what I mainly run. And then my business partners does custom homes. Now on the residential end, I forget what they called it, but essential. He was deemed an essential on the residential end. So he was able to get back up and running. I don't know if it was 3 weeks, 4 weeks, something like that, much sooner than the commercial end. And then again, Philadelphia was definitely more challenging and more strict relative to it. And that's where my projects were. I only had a few at that time, and we were a company that grew to 9 employees. In 2019, we downsized to 4. So it turned out we downsized at the right time, because we probably would have had to done that anyway, come COVID. So it was good timing on our part. But that goes back to challenges of trying to run a business, cash flow, you name it, other business dealings that go sour, what have you. It's all fun.
Never a dull day, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And what does the commercial end look like now? I mean, obviously with COVID still, there's commercial buildings have changed a lot, and a lot of people not going back to work. So has that had a lasting effect on you guys at all?
No, we've been very, very busy, and as a small, medium-sized firm, we don't need, because we downsized too, we don't need that much work to stay busy,
Mhm.
to stay productive, to keep revenue up. No, commercial wasn't bad at all, and it still has continued to grow over the last couple of years.
Then what was your goal when you first started the business, and has that goal changed over time? And what do I mean by that is a lot of people get into entrepreneurship to build as big of a business as possible,
Yeah,
grow, top line revenue, hopefully grow bottom line profit with that. Was that your initial goal? And is that still your
yeah,
initial goal, just to continue to grow? Or is it
yeah,
get to a place where we're comfortable and just kind of look, we're always trying to grow a little bit, but like top line growth is not the most important thing that we're focused on here.
yeah. I love this question because it comes back to, and what I've learned is, what makes you happy? What are you good at? And I think that downsizing, we learned that we don't need it to be a big company. We're comfortable, and this is fun. This is fun again because we're actually more in the trenches. We're in the minutia, which we were kind of getting away from and just trying to support our staff. It's fun to be out there. And I think we forgot the fun of it. And we're happy with the size now. But for me personally, I started another business 2.5 years ago. It's a masonry staining business. I met a younger owner of a third generation painting company, and I had this idea that I brought to him because I saw a need. I saw a need in the industry for staining of masonry products. Most people paint them. They don't know that staining is even an option. And I presented this idea to him, and he was all in. And we've been partners now for 2.5 years, and landed a nice large project right out of the gate, which was a challenge because it's a smaller company that I partnered with, and I think he had to go through some challenges, and it's really just growth, right? He's now trying on another business too, so learning how that partner and I work together and trying to build this business, and so that's been fun. And I'm in the process of starting another business. That challenge of starting other businesses with other great people that I've gotten to know over the years in the industry, that excites me, man. And it's just about the newness of it, the challenge of it. And again, it's something that we see a need in the industry. We're not just doing something that everyone else is doing. It's a need where we want to help clients. And that's what it's about. It's the service and help clients, because all the people that I'm in business with, they are so client just service. That's number one. We just want to make sure that they're happy at the end of the day.
The construction world, restoration, all that stuff, it fascinates me. My old roommate in Philly actually works for Valcourt. I don't know if you know them.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, so he works for them, and he has been working for them for like 5-6 years now or so. And so just to understand and like see how the puzzle comes together in really anything, of just like you look at a building and you just think, oh, there's like a guy up there cleaning the windows. Oh no, but what goes into that, and like all the contracts, sign offs, everything, all the people involved, and just recognizing that this grand just economy that we're in and how
Yeah.
it all plays together is just fascinating.
Yeah, there's a lot of components for sure. And then just all the disciplines alone, which, as you may or may not know, my podcast is about tradesmanship. It's alternatives to college. It's about entrepreneurship. And my original thought and idea was to bring all these tradesmen on, different types of tradesmen, and it still is, just so they can share their journey. And I've had plenty on, but I've learned that a lot of them don't want to put themselves out there. It's not easy to come on a podcast and chat like this. And a lot of them are like, I'm good at my hands, I have good work, but I don't think I want to talk about it. So it shifted to entrepreneurship as well, which I think eventually would have anyway.
But you said you went to college.
Yep.
So how'd you get into the trades? Is it something that you did growing up at all, or why has that become a center of focus for you?
Yeah. As a kid, I was always building stuff. I mean, you name it. I built it. Go-kart, a boat, a tree fort on stilts in the middle of a pond, all kinds of different tree forts. I was just so into that, and was always fascinated by buildings. Any city we'd go to, my mom would always say, you'd always ask, how tall do you think that building is? So I had a fascination. It was pretty clear. And then even though that fascination as a younger kid, you go through high school and you don't know what you want to do. Obviously, I played baseball, and I definitely wanted to do that. I finished school, but I still wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I mean, What
What'd you go to
18
school
year?
for?
I ended up going for architecture initially because I thought maybe I want to be an architect. So I have an architectural degree, but then I'm like, I don't want to just design. I want to build it. That's what I love doing. Not only physically doing it, but managing it. And then I went into what's called civil engineering technology, which now Temple University has it as CMT, which is construction management technology, which is basically what we were doing. We were hired as, whether you want to be an estimator, a project manager, or superintendent of these large firms, to manage these projects from out of the ground to completion.
And what are your thoughts on college at this point?
I loved my experience, but I also played baseball, and that enhanced it for sure. But what I tell my kids, and they know how I feel. I don't think it's a necessity, but if it's something that you want to experience, okay, that's fine with me. If it's something that you just want to, I mean, I just want them to know that a degree is not mandatory. And I think the value of college is it's devaluing because of the cost. And again, I don't think anything's wrong with higher education. I loved my experience, but I also needed the degree that I got. I needed that for what I did, but most jobs you don't need that degree. But the best thing, in my opinion, about college is just the relationships, the connections. I still have so many from today that I do business with. That's where you can meet, I think, lifelong friends and true relationships.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's popular online nowadays to say that
Yeah.
college is a complete waste of time, waste of money, don't even bother going, so on and so forth. And while there maybe is a little,
Yep.
a tad of truth in that, of course, to your point, it's just like college is a easy way to start to experience life for the first time, of course, and make mistakes that all 18 to 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds will ultimately make, and have like minimal repercussions for it, where the stakes aren't so high. You're able to kind of get that stupidity out early, hopefully,
Yeah.
and see that you need to be able to take care of yourself, and there are consequences for your actions. And so to your point of
Understanding the return on investment, I think, is key, though. You're right. I mean, are you just going to go to get any degree? What are you going for? Do you know what you want? And it's okay to take a gap year too, right? If you're spending money, I mean, yes, you can go and just get your basic classes done if you wanted to, and then figure it out sophomore, junior year if there's a shift there. But you just have to understand the cost, right? I mean, is it worth that investment? I think the experience is everything, but is it 60,000 a year value? There's so many colleges you can go to and get a similar experience. And I just think, I just really can't, these colleges that are charging 50, 60, 70,000, it's incredible.
yeah,
It
it's
is really
insane.
is.
Yeah, that just from my own experience, I just went to Shippensburg D2
Yep.
school in central Pennsylvania, state school. So I forget what it was at the time, $17,000 a year, whatever it was. I'm still paying back that debt currently. And there was no conversation beforehand of like, hey, this is this is what you're signing up for. You're signing up for like 60 grand worth of debt here. Just so you know, like, do you understand what that means? And I think that, to your point, more importantly than anything, is just like you understand what you're signing up for, which at this point, I don't think schools or really anybody does a very good job. Yeah.
No. Yep, absolutely. And just if the students, and I understand 18, 19 years old, I'm not expecting them to know, but if you have an idea what you want to do, understand if you really need that degree, because most, you can get great jobs. And for me, I hire for energy, for personality. We can teach you experience. Are you a good person? Obviously, I did make a bad hire before, and I learned from that. But that's just something that I look for.
I mean, I think any business owner would say that they're not batting 100% on hires. And so you said just energy and just personality. When it comes to an interview, again, anything specific you do look for beyond that, of just like, how do you discern a good hire from a bad hire based off just a few conversations and maybe a piece of paper that says what their past is?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I think it's just the questions, the level of the questions, just having that conversation. I think you can learn a lot from somebody, even if personal things come into play, if they wanted to share just that genuine connection. And I think I've gotten a lot better at understanding if that connection is real. But yeah, it's just a sense, maybe a sixth sense. I just feel good about that person. But like you said, I've certainly made a bad one.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't done any interviews since my interviews from college. So was that almost 10 years from now
Yeah,
or 10 years ago, just because even in my promotions in corporate, I didn't even interview for them. And so I always had like, and what I'm going to ask is like, do the typical like generic interview questions, one, do you ask them? Two, are you able to actually get like a good sense of somebody from those? And
yeah,
the one that sticks out to me, just tell me about a time that you overcame a challenge or something like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And one, just like anybody can say anything, but two, is that something that actually helps you delineate if this person would be a good fit or not?
Yeah, I mean, I have not interviewed someone for probably 6 years since we downsized. It's been a little while. One question I do remember asking was, "Where do you think you want to be in 5 years?" That was one that I asked. Just where they'd like to be within the company. But I think just having just a regular conversation about who they are, and not to try to get too personal, but if they just can be open about some personal things and just be transparent, and just to have a genuine conversation is what I'd want. And just obviously making sure they understand what the job entails and what some of the expectations will be.
Then it's been a while, but do you just kind of like abide by the rule or used to just of hire slow, fire fast? I think Gary Vee is the one who like kind
Yeah.
of popularizes that.
Yeah. Well, that happened with this one hire that I referred to. But yeah, no, my partner and I talked about it too. If we catch somebody blatantly lying, that's an immediate. When a client comes to you about, client who's also a very good friend, about some things that occurred, that's immediate without getting into details. But yeah, it's this whole starting other businesses. We're comfortable with where we're at. We hire temporary now. If we land a big project and we need full time, we will hire. But what we're
Mm.
trying to do is not take on more overhead at this time. But again, if we have a project that warrants it, we absolutely will. But now that we downsize, we don't need the large and numerous projects to feed the men, if you will.
Mhm. Gotcha. With either becoming an entrepreneur or just throughout your career, are there certain people, either in real life or books that you've read or anything like that, that has really made a meaningful impact on how you approach business?
Nothing comes to mind other than you said Gary Vee. Did you see his new book that's coming out?
I have seen it. Is it out yet?
No, it's next month, and
Okay.
that's one that really strikes my interest.
Yeah, same here.
Bear with me though, because do you remember the name? Now the name escaped me. I'll tell you
Day
in a
trading
second.
attention.
Yes, it is day trading attention. Yeah. So I think just knowing Gary Vee for as long as I've been following him, and what he tried to do with that book, I think that is going to be a great book for existing entrepreneur wannabes, because I don't think there's anyone better than Gary at that, right?
Yeah. Gary's like the first person that I came across from just like the entrepreneurial world who like
Yeah.
made me start to think a little differently about business, and like how I started my own entrepreneurial journey, I guess, is doing like the flipping, going to garage sales and buying stuff
Yeah.
for $2 and selling it on eBay for 10. And
Mm-hmm.
I did that on the weekends and at night whenever I started working for Volkswagen 7 years ago. And so my entire time in my corporate career, I always had a side hustle, and started with that, and then started with, after that, moved on to like selling books on Amazon, and then started trying to do a social media agency, and just kind of like slowly,
Yeah.
slowly tested new things, tried new things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember back, it was probably like 2015, 2016, listening to one of Gary's books at the time. I don't figure which one it is, but he was talking about being on social media and stuff like that. And it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
man, like that guy more than anybody, I think, has really just had like a finger on the pulse of culture and
Yeah.
understanding where it's going, both in the business world, but in just the world in general. And I think if you can understand that, if you can understand culture, you have a leg up on everybody else, because culture at the end of the day is just people. And so if you can understand people and what inspires them, what drives them, what makes them do what they do, it ultimately puts you in a position to, I hate to use this phrase, but take advantage of it and capture the attention,
Yeah.
which today is the most important commodity in the world, people's
Yeah,
attention.
absolutely is. Yep. And I wanted to ask you, did you ever experience a Tony Robbins event?
I've not. I've never been to a Tony Robbins event.
Yeah. So that's one that comes to mind too, that anyone could benefit from. It doesn't have to be an entrepreneur. It could be just anyone that just the energy is incredible. And he gets more into your energy, your state, mindset, health and wellness more than people realize. It's not just all that other thing. I think that they look at him as like a motivational speaker. Now there's some really great tools and great things that really open your mind. And my business partner and I went in 2018, and it was some sort of an awakening, man, because it was just like, wow, just how you use your energy and just how you talk to yourself, your state, and how quickly you can pull yourself out of a state. It's really your choice, but it's just recognizing when you're in that state that is not a healthy one. And it's just really good stuff. I enjoyed it. And I think everyone should give it a shot for the
Yeah,
experience.
I've listened to a ton of podcasts. Big fan of his, but I
Yeah.
haven't gone to an event. What about 2018 made you guys go when you did?
My business partner, it was his idea, and he's like, let's do it. And I was never one to shy away from an adventure or challenge. And I said, let's do it. I heard a lot about him, didn't really follow him, but it was just it was an incredible experience.
Was it in Philly, New York area? Chicago.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then talking about traveling experiences, I'd love to chat about, I forget what the name of it is, just like men's trips that you go on, I guess.
Yeah. The one that I go on is called the Guys Trip.
Guys Trip, okay.
And another gentleman who left the corporate world and started this Guys Trip brand. And it's all about bringing guys together who are like-minded. You don't have to be entrepreneurs. You can be executive in your field, but it's just about getting together with other guys and have real conversations while you're doing challenging things. And the quality of dudes that I've met in Peru, I'm going to Spain this year too. I'm actually going to North Carolina for I think they're calling it, it's like a reunion. It's kind of like where guys from other trips get to meet other guys from other trips kind of thing.
Cool.
And then they put on little things together. And this is just something that he just put it out there. If you want to come down, just come down kind of thing. And it's real connections. And it's just a lot of fun. And just you find out what some big things some of these guys are doing. It's just neat to learn about them and how they got to that point.
Yeah, it's amazing how easy and fast you can connect with somebody, whether it's just like on a weekend trip or a week-long trip, or even just through people you meet online, that by putting yourself out there, by signing up to do that, you're already in a very unique circle of people by just agreeing to do that. And by just agreeing to do that and by being there or by putting yourself out online, that adds a connection that kind of allows you to like skip over some of the surface level stuff. And to your point, allows you to go kind of deep right away and just talk about real things and things that are meaningful, whether it's business, family, whatever it is. But you just give each other and yourself permission to just say like, hey, like we can talk about the ball game later, but at a different time. We're here for a specific reason. So let's talk about some real stuff while we're here.
Absolutely. And those experiences really, again, touched on what a lot of things you just said and just how beneficial it has been for me. When I turned 50 last year, I set up an event to Costa Rica and I put it out to about 10, 12 guys that neighbor, business relation, just guys that I have good relationships with that I would love for them to be with me in the celebration, if you will. And six of them came and none of them knew each other. Maybe one or two knew each other, but it was just what I loved about it more than anything is just seeing those relationships being built between the guys that I introduced. You know what I mean? All different walks of life, but similar in the sense that obviously we all have a connection. We all have our own connection. And they could all see why I invited those other guys because the connection that they developed was real too. And it was neat to see.
Yeah, it's incredible. What part of Costa Rica?
Doing hard, different things too. You know, like we surfed, first time I ever surfed. I wanted to do something different stuff. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
I waited till 50 years old to surf. What the hell am I doing?
Yeah, I still haven't gotten to surfing yet. I was planning on doing it whenever I was in Peru, but I went and played soccer one night with just some local people,
Okay.
local guys there in Peru,
Awesome.
and messed up my foot pretty bad, and so couldn't walk.
Not so awesome.
Yeah, not so awesome. Couldn't walk for like 2 weeks, so that put a damper on my Peru trip. But now that I'm down here in Jacksonville by the ocean, need to start learning how to surf.
I have a good buddy down there. Actually, he's a real good buddy with my business partner. He runs a construction office out of Jacksonville.
Oh, really?
Him and his wife. Yeah, I'll have to connect you guys.
Yeah, would love that. That'd be awesome. Last question, and the final question that I ask pretty much everybody is, what is your why? Why do you do what you do?
This one can get emotional for me because it's something that my son is the big why. But I don't talk about it because he doesn't really want me to. It's just something that happened to him when he was younger, and all good. I mean, it's great, but he, you know, I had cold feet to take this leap big time because I was challenged. I loved what I did. I made really good money, and it was hard to just walk away. But my son was a big reason, if not the only reason, I was able to do it. But he scolded me a few times with telling the story, so I can't.
All good, but
yeah, but he's my man, and yeah, but again, deep down inside, I knew I needed more and I needed to be challenged, and I just didn't know what that meant, but I just needed more, and I knew I was capable of what I was doing, but the question was, can I make it into a business? And, you know, back to earlier, obviously partnering with someone that had a business already in place definitely made the transition easier. I can only imagine than trying to do it all myself.
Man, I love that. I think it's something that deep down we all have that feeling of like more, but in like a healthy way, that we all know that we're meant to do greater things than we're currently doing, but a lot of people just don't go after it. So I'm always inspired by the people who do, who answer that call. And again, whatever that more is in your life, it could be something quote unquote simple for somebody else, but it's more for you at this point. And then that, like we talked about earlier, that confidence just continues to build and build and go into every other aspect of life. And you look back a couple of years time frame and you're a new person and doing completely new things that you at that time had no idea you'd be able to get to.
Yeah. You know, the desire for personal growth, I think, is a big why too. I mean, I always knew I wanted to grow, and doing the same thing day in and day out. Yeah, you can grow up the corporate ladder, but it just wasn't enough for me. I needed that growth, that more, whatever, like you said, whatever that is. I just knew I couldn't stay put.
Yeah, we'll end it with Abraham Maslow's quote of, what a man can be, he must be. And so just that self-actualization of achieving, maybe not achieving, because you can never achieve your full potential. We'll never be able to figure out what that actually is, I don't think.
Sure.
But striving for it, always striving for it, trying to close that gap of who we are versus who we can be, I think is something that we can all do daily. And so, Nick, I really appreciate your time, man. This was an awesome conversation. Pumped to finally connect.
Yeah, man.
If people want to learn more about you, what you got going on, want to follow along everything that you're doing, where's the best place for them to follow?
Yeah, you can find me on any podcast platform called Constructing Greatness. My new business is called M&N Masonry Staining, and my general contracting business is called MPC Builders, and we're on all the platforms.
Awesome. Well, I'll have all that linked in the show notes so people can easily find you.
I appreciate it, man, and great to finally connect.
Absolutely, man. Thanks again.
Talk to you soon.